Sure. So my name is Dr. Jorge Marquez. I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of Texas. I work here at the Counseling and Psychological Services. I've been here for 5 years. So I'm a licensed psychologist here, but I am now also the assistant director of the counseling center. It's very common. I mean, I can remember back when I was taking classes, when we're starting to learn about different health conditions, especially different mental health conditions, thinking like, oh, that sounds like, what if I have that, or my friend has that, or well, maybe I should suggest to them that they've got this, condition. So, and then now, as a therapist, definitely some students that are coming in wondering if they have this, like, oh, I was reading up on, for example, bipolar disorder. I think that's one of the most common ones. Depression, just because a lot of those symptoms are very common. I mean, we could experience those on a daily basis, and when you read it and you see it as, wow, this is a condition or a diagnosis, people sometimes tend to get a little bit scared about it. They freak out and think they might have it. As far as the self-medication piece, I mean, that could be hard because, again, most people who are going to prescribe medication, I mean, if somebody goes to get medication the legal way, right, through a prescription, the prescriber is going to ask, either diagnose them themselves or say, did a doctor send you? Like, how do you know that you have this diagnosis? But then we've also heard of those individuals that get the medication from friends or, illegally. Yeah. And I've seen that quite a bit with anxiety. Yeah. Because anxiety is something else that's very common, and so, to get somebody, oh, do you have Xanax, and can that help me kind of relax? And so, but there's also the dosage piece to it. You really need to know what somebody has, and so that's why it's important to see a professional so that you know what type of medication or treatment is obviously more beneficial to the person. Yeah, there's pros and cons to that. It's good because it allows you to understand what you have. I think for a lot of individuals, it's validating when you find out that, okay, yeah, this is a real condition. It's not just me kind of making it up or being oversensitive, or a lot of times individuals might not understand what they have, and so that gives a name to it, right? Another potential benefit to looking up the symptoms is that you know what to expect. So you might know, like, okay, if I have these symptoms, these are the things I might struggle with. These are the things that I can still do and how I can function. And then it also allows an individual to know what the treatment might be, right? So we're talking, maybe certain types of medications might help this condition, certain types of treatments, rehabilitation, therapies, that also helps. And another thing for treatment providers, I think sometimes knowing what the symptoms are, it's like a common language. So that if you say, I have depression, a provider might already have a sense of, okay, you might be struggling with certain conditions or certain symptoms. Yeah. Now on the flip side, though, right, where it might not be so smart is, again, if somebody just kind of self-diagnoses themselves, so they go on the internet and do a checklist, and oh my gosh, I have this. There's a lot more that goes beyond just the actual diagnosis, or meeting the different symptoms. We have to look at, is it impairing a person's life? Is there impairment? So that could be they're functioning in school, they're functioning with their relationships, at work, just at daily living skills, getting up on time, bathing, taking care of themselves. Or also, is it causing distress to the individual? Are they feeling pain? Are they suffering? So when all those criteria are met, then yeah, a lot of times, maybe somebody has it. But again, and that's why you need a professional to kind of go through that with you. It depends. I think if it were me with one of my students, I would say, let's talk about it together. So let's look into it together so that if there's any questions that need to be asked or answered, we could do that here together. So I would encourage them to do it, however, with follow-up. So I wouldn't, or let's say then if it's a friend. If it's a friend of mine, it'd be like, well, if you think you have that, maybe you need to go talk to somebody about it just to make sure it is for sure that it is what you have or what you think you have. So I don't think there's anything bad in looking it up, on your own and getting some information about it, but really just getting that second opinion.
Yeah.
That could be very dangerous, right? Because again, medications, they're going to be, changing our brain chemistry, right? Sometimes obviously it alters our brain chemistry so that we can function in a certain way. A lot of times it's for a beneficial cause, right? So for example, if I'm depressed, I have low levels of serotonin, for example, the medication, what's going to happen is going to increase that, brain chemistry. But of course, that has to be monitored by somebody, right? Somebody who knows how much dosage to give, somebody that you're having follow up. Because you're right, if if I'm doing it on my own, I don't know what I'm taking, how much is, am I taking too much, am I taking too little, is it making me worse in the long run? So that's why it's very important. So it can change your mental functioning, and again, that's why it's very important to get it treated and get somebody to help you out. There's just so much information now, so that's actually one of the good things now, is that there's so much more information out there on mental health, mental health conditions. I think students are talking about it a lot more. So I don't know if we could prevent the self-diagnosis, but I think the next step would be, if I feel like I have something, there's nothing wrong with me going and getting checked out to make sure I do or I don't, right? And so that way, it's good to know whether somebody has a condition or not, so that if they do, they can engage in the proper treatment so that they can manage it and have a pretty normal and well-functioning life. So I would say, yeah, so the goal wouldn't be to prevent that, it's just be more of, if you feel like you have something, go get it checked out.